This is a free sample of the book, The Financial Red Pill by Cairo Copeland. The first half of this book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/finance. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/finance.
Chapter 2. The greatest purpose every man needs to prioritize. Let me talk to you about a purpose every man needs to take on. And this really needs to become perhaps the most important purpose of your life. And that is financial freedom. Because in this world, you as a male, you don't really have freedom unless you have financial freedom. You definitely don't have freedom of speech unless you have financial freedom. Because what can happen is this: you just tweet something or post something on Facebook or say something at the office that's red pill, and immediately the floodgates open up and people start condemning you. Everyone from the bitchy feminists to the simps. And I tell you what, the simps are going to be a lot more harsh on you. They're going to be the biggest obstacle in your life. They're the ones that are making the world a living hell for all males. But I've found one solid answer to all the problems. While this world presents unfavorable conditions to you just for being male, there is one way to check out of the world, or at least not be at its mercy. There is a state of life known as anti-fragility, where your enemies can spread false accusations and lies about you, but you don't care. And that's because you're not depending on the approval of employers, customers, or others in general for you to remain a participant in the economy and in the world. And that is the state of financial freedom, or as I like to call it, fuck you money. Because one phrase that feels good to say, almost to the point where you feel a release of endorphins, is fuck you. Imagine a scenario where your worst enemy is begging for mercy, and you kneel down to their level like you're about to help, but you just utter those two words instead. The joy of saying this phrase has created a new class of wealth. You see, there's poverty, there's middle class, there's affluence, retirement, ultra-high net worth, and now there's fuck you money. And fuck you money means exactly what it sounds like. It means you have the ability to say whatever you want to anyone you want without having to worry about any repercussions that are economic. The freedom of speech in America only means you won't be thrown in jail for saying an unpopular opinion. Of course, that's probably going to go away at some point. It's already like that in the UK. But you can still be thrown out of the marketplace in the United States for saying something unpopular. If you have a view that offends some pussy-ass coworker, you get fired and blacklisted from ever working again. If you tweet a dirty joke that offends a purple-haired person that's unsure of their gender, and probably everybody else is unsure of it as well, you get trolled, doxxed, and hunted down like a dog. Make a woman feel uncomfortable ever, and you may as well kill yourself because the social imperative is for your life to now be a living hell. All this trouble goes away with fuck you money. Cop pulls you over and wants to see you humiliate yourself to get out of a ticket. Fuck you. You won't miss the money for the citation. Boss wants you to come in on your day off for a meeting that could have been summed up in an email. Fuck you. You don't even need to work. Ever notice the retiree that goes to the grocery store in his bathrobe and farts when he walks? He doesn't care what anyone thinks, because he's retired with a pension that pays for his existence. There's no longer a need for him to act cautiously and please everyone around him. Fuck you money means your life is already paid for, and there are no financial consequences big enough to ruin it. The mission of this book, the mission of Reinvent Ideal, is to help you achieve this financial status in your lifetime, preferably in your younger years like your 30s, with everything you do with the information in this book. The information from this podcast, the information from this YouTube channel. Do it for the end goal of financial freedom. Do it to never have to work again. And do it for the betterment of the world. Because you see, the world has shifted to female primacy, where women can do so much with less consequences. When you've attained financial freedom, you'll have this power as well. When this power becomes more proliferated among men, perhaps we'll live in a world with less female favoritism. Finally, individuals may be recognizable for their own individual merits. We can't change the world now, but we can change ourselves. And consequently, that's how we change the world. To best help others, you help yourself. You are in a better position to help others once you, yourself, have been thoroughly helped. Being able to say fuck you and having the cash to pay for that fuck you is what will liberate you from the slavery of social imperatives that come from the fempowerment mandate. A few examples. A social justice wannabe warrior is offended by a joke you told and wants to ruin your life with boycotts and expulsion from the economy. Fuck you. Your life is already paid for. Thus you can say whatever you want. A woman you approach rejects you immediately because you're not tall enough for her or lacking some other shallow ideal. Fuck you. You're rich and that makes you the ideal for millions of other women due to their hypergamous nature. People don't like your attitude, your blunt way of speaking, enlightened self-interest, and refusal to play the PR game. Fuck you. You don't need anyone else's approval to live your life now that it's already been fully financed. No longer will you walk on eggshells as an obligation to the sensitive society you were forced to adapt to. Having financial freedom is what will allow us to rebel against the fempowerment mandate and do as we please. Our lives will already be paid for. Thus, we can do as we like with them. And that's the real point here in attaining the financial freedom. I don't tell you guys, get rich so you can get girls. I tell you, get rich so that you don't have to be a slave to this society that prioritizes those girls over you. So you don't have to put up with the bullshit that comes from dealing with women. Now let's talk about finding your number. There's much debate over what number is needed to live the rest of your life comfortably and never run out of money. Some say it's 1 million, others say 5 million, and still others will say, oh, it should be 10 million. Because comfort is subjective and living expenses vary, the number is different for everyone. But the way you find that number is universal and applies to everyone. There's a great personal finance blog, MrMoneyMustache.com, and in that they established a theory based on mathematics to determine what amount is truly needed for a person to retire early or achieve financial freedom. They made the hypothesis that your savings rate as a percentage of your take-home pay would determine how soon you could retire. Now, the assumptions behind the theory are you can earn 5% return on your savings after inflation and taxes, which I agree you can. In your retirement, you never withdraw more than 4% a year from your savings because many studies have shown it to be safe, and I agree with that too. And you intend to make the principal last forever because it's only the gains that you're withdrawing and pocketing. Now, all these assumptions are pretty reasonable to me. Let's use, for the sake of example, pretend you make $80,000 a year. Now, if you were extreme and saving 50% of your income, you're only living on $40,000 a year. That means only after 17 years of doing that, you've saved enough where 4% of those savings will be enough to provide you with $40,000 a year in income for life. Spending less than you earn is the obvious thing to do, but this theory shows that spending less than you save is the real optimal thing to do. So step by step, how do you reach the magic number from which 4% withdrawals will finance your life? Step 1, determine the sum of your annual expenses. Now, I'd say don't make a budget when you do this, because there's a flaw in budgets. They only show what you think you will spend. The best method for this step is to look back at bank and credit card statements that show what you in fact did spend. Tracking expenses down to the cent is more important for that reason. It will tell you what your life costs and help you determine how much it will cost in the future. And this method is assuming that your current lifestyle is one you'd be comfortable and happy with in early retirement. And if this is not the case, then certainly add in the new expenses for the lifestyle you want to have. I also recommend adding in the cost of health insurance because many of us get our health insurance from employers. If we're retired, that is no longer the case. Use the average annual expenses for multiple years if possible. Don't go off just the best year, because expenses are going to change year to year. You will have new interests, and also you will experience unexpected emergencies. All these things need to be taken into consideration. Now, using myself as an example, the sum of my living expenses for 1 year is $55,000. Step 2, multiply that number by 25. In order to be able to afford my cost of living this year at $55,000, I need a sum of money invested in a way to generate $55,000 in earnings and have that $55,000 be 4% of the invested money. So $55,000 divided by 0.04, or 55,000 times 25, and that equals 1.375 million. Now, what's all this mean here? I'm throwing all these numbers at you. What do they mean? That means that in order to stop working today, but still have my existence fully funded as I'm used to having it, I need 1.375 million invested today and earning 4%. Now, why 4%? When you withdraw only 4% of your retirement savings each year, provided you keep the rest of it invested in a diversified portfolio, you have a 95% success rate of making your money last for the rest of your life. Many studies have been conducted on this theory, and there is much empirical evidence to back this up. Even when the markets and investments underperform, withdrawing from your stash at 4% protects you from expending all your assets. But here's the rest of the story. 4% is the maximum amount you can withdraw each year. It's not the minimum you need your money to earn. Remember, the next year, my cost of living goes up due to inflation. That inflation could be as high as 3%. So I need to earn an additional 3% to prepare for the next year's needed withdrawal. In reality, I should be shooting for at least 7% return on my money to meet my needs. Step 3, make adjustments. Some financial advisors like to be far more precise with determining this number. For example, they'll take the living expenses and adjust it for inflation, which is smart, but it requires you to make far too many assumptions that you can't be anywhere near certain about, such as how many years it will take you to earn the money needed, how many years you'll be alive to keep the lump sum working for you, what the correct inflation rate will be, and it ignores the fact that many adjustments to your lifestyle and savings can neutralize the force of inflation. See, if inflation is 3% a year, but I've managed to reduce my cost of living for the year by 20%, do I really need to worry about it? Of course not. To determine what was my number, I tracked my expenses for an entire year. Just doing the work of tracking my expenses brings to light expenses I can cut and shows me what I'm wasting money on. Having my eyes set on 1.375 million gives me a visible and specific goal I can start working toward right away. Now, I can calculate the amount I need to save each year in order to reach that in the shortest amount of time. I can also determine what annual rate of return I need in order to reach it sooner as well. Your time is limited. Life is so short. Each new day feels shorter and more rushed than yesterday. Many of us feel like the time is being stolen from us because of work, responsibilities, obligations. Don't you want it all to slow down? To not have to squeeze in the enjoyment of your life between alarm clocks and time clocks? This is what financial independence is all about. Financial independence is what will allow you to break free from the financial blue pill imperatives that demand you work undesirable jobs and put on a happy face for others. It's what will allow you to finally have the freedom of speech you've been biting on your tongue from exercising. It's what will allow you to rise above the predetermined, scripted failure that the anonymous authorities had in store for you. And getting there is not a matter of fortune. It's a matter of formula.
Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book, The Financial Red Pill, by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/finance. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/finance.